Good evening. Yeah, we'll start the session. Today we'll start with cloning first, and then Arup sir will take the remaining portion. Okay, let me present. So yeah, how to create an object, like how to create the copy of an object. Anyone, any ideas? Like if you want to create an copy of object, let's take there is some employee object even. This is like there is object also for this employee basically will have some fields, okay, let us give some name to this employee name. Okay, some Rahul or something. Okay, now you want to create a new object, and that must be like copy of this object even. So how can you do this? Anyone, any ideas like how to do this? Any thoughts on this? Just you want to create a new object which has same uh, which has like a say instant, this has instance variables name, no? In that instance variable it should hold Rahul. So yeah, that should be same copy of this even. So how to do that? So one way, so you are familiar with this, no? You can do this, no, right? You are familiar with this kind of assigning, right? Employee a2 equal to e1. So what happens if we do this? So if we do this, can anyone wants to tell what we are doing here? Okay.
We are referring E1 object to E2. So if we do any changes in E1 will also affect E2. Am I right?
Yeah, yes, you are correct. Yes, you are correct. So okay, here E1, basically E1 and E2 are pointing to the same memory location, are referring to the same memory location. So there is only one object, but you have two references for this same object. That means you are creating reference copy. This is not object copy. You are not creating new object right here. You're just creating copy of your reference, but you are not creating new object itself. So this is reference copy. This is not like you are not creating new object. This is not object copy. So this you can do by using the clone method in Java. So what happens in the clone method is like if you say employee e2 equal to e1 dot clone. So I will write this e2 equal to e1 dot clone. So what happens here is like you have e1 here, it has, let's take it as instance variable name, and now it is holding Rahul. Same. Now e2 will be created if you say employee e2 equal to e1 dot clone. New object e2 will be created of type employee, and whatever the, see, now the name is holding Rahul, no? This will be copied to here. Same bitwise copy will happen. Whatever the value it is storing, the same values your object also will be storing. So this is kind of creating new object from the existing copy of object. You are creating the copy of even using clone method. So yeah, there is two types of cloning. There are two types of cloning, that is shallow cloning and deep cloning. Shallow and deep. Okay, in shallow, right, what happens here is I will show by diagrams only. So this is example. So let us take in the employee itself, if you have another attribute which is like address. So here you have name and address as instance variables of your class employee. Let us take address also. Address is like new object, no? It is also different object like employee. It is also an object, no? So what happens in shallow cloning is like now e1 e2, like if you use clone, new object will be created. Okay, that is for sure. Now it has name Rahul. same Rahul will be here also, it will be copied here also, but there is address. So now E1 has some like address attribute, no, it is storing some value like address, like some address it is storing in address variable. Now what happens to E2 address is like, now what happens for E2 address is like, it will also be pointing to the same memory location. So whatever changes if you do in address of E1, that will be reflected in E2 also. So if you change E2 address also, it will be reflected in E1. So that is shallow cloning. That means you are just cloning this only this E1 and E2. You are cloning this E1, you are creating the new object of E1, that is E2, but you are not creating the new object of this address. So this is shallow cloning. So if there is some associated object inside your this cloned object, that won't be cloned. So you won't get cloned object for this address. But for deep cloning, what happens here is he, this is E1, so you will get new copy of E2, and Rahul will be there here and here also. And you have address, no, here address is referring to some, it is referring to some memory location, and it has some attributes and all. So here also new address will be there. So whatever the values, new address object will be created in the deep cloning, and whatever the values that E1 address is storing, same values will be copied here. Okay, that is deep cloning. So whatever changes you do in the address of E1 or E2, that won't be reflected in any one of them. So if you change E1 address, it won't be reflected in E2. Same, if you change E2 address, it won't be reflected in E2. So whatever, so this clone method is present in object class of your Java. So in the java.lang.object class, you have this clone method. And yeah, in order to use clone method in order to clone an object, you should the class, so this class employee class should implement the clonable interface. If not, this if you call this clone method, it will throw a clone not supported exception. Okay. Yeah, that's the thing. And if you need to do deep copying of your object, so generally basically the clone method which is present in the object does only shallow cloning, shallow copying. So in order to perform deep cloning to your object, you need to write your own clone method. If not, if you want shallow cloning, you can just use the object class clone method. If not, you should write your own clone method. And the thing is like yeah, you should implement, if you are, if you perform deep cloning or if you want to write your own clone method, then your class should implement clonable interface, which is a marker interface. It has nothing inside it. Okay, it is just, it is mark, it is like if you say this class implements clonable, class employee implements clonable, that means you can perform clone operation on that. That means it is telling it is like just marking kind of thing only, it has nothing inside it. And yeah, and the clone method which you write, which is present in the Java, in the java.lang.object class, it throws clone not supported exception. So the method which you write in the employee class also should what throw that, should throw that clone not supported exception. Yeah, that's what. So you will so I think this examples, no, it will, there are many examples in the activity questions. So while going through that those questions, I think you will understand better this concept. Yeah, for now, if you have any doubt regarding this, you can ask. If not, I will hand over to Arup sir.
Will you code this in the compiler? I mean, shallow and deep.
Yeah, we have many examples in activity questions, no, while doing, yeah, that will be done
Oh,
this. Yeah, then at that time it will be clear. Okay.
sure, sure. Okay, man.
Okay, any other doubts here regarding this clone?
If, like when we are putting this new employee and we are putting here Rahul, instead of Rahul, suppose here one object is there, okay, and that object has a name and address.
Okay.
If we are going to use like employee to new employee, if we are passing E1, then it is internally working like a sort of cloning, right?
Yeah, you are telling about employee E2 equal to new employee. You are talking about copy constructor,
Yeah,
no?
copy constructor. That
Yeah,
time internally
that
calling
time
itself.
it depends on how your constructor is implemented.
Okay.
So you can do both shallow cloning or shallow copying or deep copying. So it depends on how you have written in your constructor. So if there is address, let's say that address, it has some attributes also. Okay, that is even.
Mhm.
Okay, and now it depends on your constructor. So you are telling there is some object address also in that, no?
Right.
Yeah, now e1 and e2, you are creating new e2 by passing e1,
Right.
right?
Right.
uh, okay, there is some address you are telling here.
Yes.
Yeah, if you directly say this dot, so this dot address equal to e1 dot address. So whatever you are passing, no, that one e1, this means e2 here, and e1 is whatever. So that it does shallow cloning, it does shallow copying only, because you are just assigning. This is similar to e2, employee e2 equal to e1, this is similar. So whatever statement you are writing, this dot address equal to e1 dot address, this is similar to you are referring.
So
Yeah, that
got it.
means,
Thank you. Thank
yeah,
you.
that is shallow thing. But if you wanted to do copying, then okay, if address, let's take the address has some attribute called street name, then what you should do is like, this dot address dot
Just dot name also.
name, street name equal to e1 dot address dot street name. Similarly you should do for other whatever instance variables which are present in the address also. So that means you are copying instance variable, whatever the instance variable which are present in the address, you are what doing, copying them separately from e2 to e1. But if you do this e2 dot address equal to e1 dot address, you are just referring, you are just telling to point that both e1 dot address and e2 dot address are pointing to same memory location. Okay, you are
Thank
not
you.
going inside the instance variables, and you are not copying in that case. Okay.
Yeah. Got it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Ma'am, can you correct me if I'm wrong? So the shallow copying, it copies something like name, integer, primitive data type,
Yeah.
and deep copy. Yeah, tell ma'am.
Shallow clone copying is like, so here also the thing is, here also you will get new object. So for shallow also, you will get new object e1 and e2. This, you will
Yeah,
get
yeah.
memory for e1 and you will get memory for e2. But for primitive data set types, and for what mutable objects, for immutable objects, like that means integers, double floats, strings, all are immutable, no? There they perform deep copying will happen. So whatever the values here, Rahul, no, that will be, so you will get new. So here Rahul will be pointing to some different memory, here also Rahul will be pointing to some different memory. So both are not pointing to same memory for primitive and from what immutable objects, for immutable things. But for mutable things, like let's say there is like address or some other object, that means here you will what point to same memory location.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. Ma'am.
For immutable things, deep copying will happen if by using this clone method. That is yeah. For what, for mutable objects like address or student or anything, then you will get only reference copy if you do shallow copying.
If you don't mind, can you just tell the syntax for the deep copying?
So
E2.
what you will do is like, so now employee e2 equal to e1 dot clone, I told, no? Now e2 dot address, now address is instance variables of this employee. So I will say e2 dot address equal to, now I can say what, uh, so you there is like actually the return type of the clone method is object. So you can override your method to return address, or else you can just use the super class object class clone method. So super dot clone, and then you can typecast this to address. This works only, see, you need to implement clone method in your what, you need to implement clone method in the address class also. So basically what you should do is e2 dot address equal to uh, e1 dot address dot clone you should call, and this depends. So whether the clone method of the address is returning object or whether it is returning address, you should check. If it is returning object, then you should typecast it to address again. Should I write? I think I should write freshly here. So here e2 dot address equal to e1, that means I'm cloning it, calling the clone method of address class, and this clone method of the address class can return either object or it can return address. It depends on your implementation of the clone method in the address class. If it is returning object, then you should typecast this to address, because the because what e2 dot address is of type address, no, so you should typecast what downcast it to address. Okay, if it is returning object, that's the syntax. So inside for event dot address, within this event dot address, you are calling the clone method. That means you are referring to the address of the clone method of the address class. Is it clear, or is it confusing? I think examples, when we do
Yeah.
examples,
When
no.
we do the examples, it will be more clear, ma'am.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. Okay, I think I can stop sharing. Yeah, Arup sir, you can continue.
Yeah, thank you, Nalini. Hello, everyone. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Yes. Okay, okay. So let me share the screen. See, before I start with today's topic, a small portion of exception handling I want to discuss. It's a very small part, but important part. Uh, you can see, no, that Eclipse ID.
Yeah, Eclipse ID. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay.
Visible.
So I'm writing a very small code. Just try to follow it. Um, So there is nothing much inside this. I'm having some static functions. I'm just writing them static so that I can call them directly. So some static void if1, if2. Then I'm having this public static void main string. Here it is. Okay. So that's the structure is. So the idea is I'll call f1 first, right? Then f1 will call f2, right? And suppose in this I'm making some kind of mistake. So like mistake in the means I'm performing some kind of runtime exception. It's a simple one. Everybody knows this. So what exception it is?
Arithmetic zero division. Arithmetic.
Arithmetic. Yeah, divide by zero, right? That kind
Yes.
of exception it is. Okay. So what will happen if I run this program?
Um, I think both will throw the error. F2 also should throw the error. F1 also will throw the error.
Can anybody say like how the exception will be forwarded or propagated? Like this line will get the exception, there is no doubt. Then where the exception will go?
From the main F1 is calling, F1 is going to call F2. Okay. When
Yeah.
F2 will going to call and trigger, it will back to F1 and F1 will back to main.
Yeah, exactly. So if the exception is not handled right in a function, it will be forwarded to the caller, right? It will be forwarded to the caller. So that's how. If I just run this, you can just find out like F2 forwarded it to F1, F1 forwarded to main. And it's basically from main I'm getting the exception, right? That divided by zero.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to make this forwarding thing much clearer. Suppose I'm having a class, I say it's a my exception. So do you have a class after this? After Java, do you have another session?
I think
Yes.
Mat 2 is there. Mat 2.
Anybody is there from this group?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. I'll then remind me. Okay, extends exception. So I've created a custom exception that's named as a my exception, right? Okay, so forget about this. I say throw new my exception. So if I do this, what will happen now in this case?
Same thing. Instead of arithmetic, it will now show my exception.
Can you compile this program? My first question is.
Sir, should we mention throws my exception?
Right,
Line number 9.
Line number 9.
Okay. You're saying I need to write the throws. If I don't write throws, will it work?
I think it will throw compilation either.
It will throw a compilation error, right? So
Okay.
let us try to run this. It's basically generate a compiler error. It's basically a compiler error. Okay. Unresolved compilation, right? It's a compiler. Now, the same exception, if I write here runtime exception, now what will happen? Will it compile?
It should compile because.
It should compile, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
in this case, I'll get exception, right? I'll get a runtime exception, but previous one was a compiler error. So why that is happening? Why if I do a extend exception, I get a compiler error. If I say extend runtime exception, I get a runtime exception, not a
Fundamental.
compiler. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Why I'm getting it?
Because it is checked exception.
Yeah, exactly. There is the point. So if you extend the exception class, then whatever the exception you are creating, that becomes a checked exception. And for the checked exception, compiler will enforce either you have to put it in a try catch or you have to advertise the exception using a throws. But if it is a runtime exception, you may handle it using a try catch. You may advertise it, that does not matter, but compiler won't check for it. Compiler won't check for it. So if you do just the exception, so you must either advertise it over here as throws my exception, right? Now will it solve my problem? Does it compile? Will it compile now?
We are not handling it in F1, right, sir?
Yeah, I'm not handling. So whatever the checked exception, still it is unhandled exception, not advertised.
Yes.
If I do again my exception, is it now fine?
It will again throw in main function.
Because it is again forwarded to main. So main again has to advertise it.
But main can't throw it anymore, right?
Yeah, main can throw it, right? Because main is also having a caller. What is the caller? The JVM. So it's like what is happening, try to understand.
Okay.
Exception like a ball, right? You're just throwing it. Who is throwing it? The JVM, right?
Okay.
So it is going to the main. Not, it is going to, so let me rectify it tell it in a different way. What are the exceptions actually? They are the notification messages. So suppose you do a very wrong thing in your college, right? So your principal will send you certain notice, right? You have done
Yes, sir.
something wrong, right?
Yeah.
Now the idea is, if you rectify yourself, our principal will say, yeah, okay, you have rectified yourself, so I am happy. But if you don't rectify yourself, Now he will send the notice to your parent.
Yeah.
So it is expected now your parent will take care of this. If it is
Correct.
not still happening, what will happen? The notice will come back to the principal and principal will terminate you. Right? So who
Yes,
is
sir.
the principal here? JVM is the principal here.
Okay.
Suppose F2 do a wrong thing, JVM will notify with an exception object you are doing something wrong, right? So now JVM can take care of it itself using a try catch. So putting a try catch means I'm going to take care of the error exception. It's the wrong thing.
Okay.
Instead of doing that, F2 can do what? F2 keep it unhandled if it is a unchecked exception, or use a throws if it is a checked exception. So it's going to say I'm not going to handle it. Maybe my caller will handle it, right? It
Yes,
goes
sir.
to its caller. Now caller may handle it again using a try catch, so it is closed. If it is not handled over there, again it will be going to its caller. Like it is go on happening like this. But ultimately, whenever it goes to the main, it is expected that main will ultimately close it. But still main is not closing means it will go back to the JVM and JVM will abruptly terminate your program. Right? That is the punishment of your program. That's it cannot run anymore. So that's the idea, is right? How the entire thing happens. Now, this is all about checked and unchecked, but this is not the topic I'm supposed to
Can you
discuss.
run this, please, if you don't mind? I just wanted to see what the output will be. I mean, what is happening here, sir?
So F2 forwarded to F1, F1
F1
forwarded to
main.
main is not able to handle it. So
Yeah.
JVM have probably terminated it as a result. That's all.
Okay.
But if
So
you just
yes, sir.
stop it, make it handled here on the main.
Just try.
Yeah, just I say I'm finally handling it. So that's how. That's basically closed. It is not going to the
Yeah.
caller. So the good idea is like keeping all the handler basically on the main function, only doing some specific handling in the other functions, right? Because you know ultimately everything will be forwarded to main, right? So any specific kind of thing where you have to clear it and the function has to be continued in a some way, you can understand if he's throwing the exception, the function cannot continue. Again, throwing exception, any code you are having after the exception, that cannot continue. But if you want something, the rest of the part of the function has to be continued, you have to handle it within the function. Otherwise, you can wait, the things will drop to the main function and main function ultimately will going to close everything. That's the idea. Okay, so let us go to the topic. I wanted to do it because this concept is somehow necessary, because sometime I'll write throws, sometime I won't write throws, so you may be confused. So in this case, I may write throws, may not write throws, it does not matter, right? It does not matter because arithmetic exception is the unchecked exception. Arithmetic exception is a unchecked exception. Okay, so let us go for it. So in this situation, so if I have finally the arithmetic exception over here, and my calls are all correct, no? Why it is showing? Okay.
My exception you did not define. Yeah.
But if you do a throws arithmetic exception, that is also not wrong, right? But it is not necessary in case of unchecked exception. But if you give the throws as an throws arithmetic exception, that's also correct syntax. Okay, so I'll have some message printed because I'm getting the error. Println, I'll have e dot get message. Okay. So the idea is the exception will be forwarded to this, then ultimately it is going to be handled on the main function, right? Okay, so I'm getting the ultimate message, and if you want to overwrite the message, okay, I am not going to overwrite it. So I'll make it simple. I want to just want to throw it. I want to make the code much simple. arithmetic exception. I say operation not allowed. So I give a custom message.
Yeah.
So whatever the message I give, that will be basically print. Okay. Now the point is, there could be a situation where you'd like to rethrow your exception. What is the rethrow your exception? Suppose I'm having a try catch here. So writing it takes time. Let me copy it, right? That will save my time. Okay. Okay. I'm have system dot out dot print ln. So I say F2. Just I'm going to give a message F2. I'm inside F2 because I want to know like where I am right now. See, can you tell me what will be the output of this code? Anyone?
So it will print F2 first.
Hmm.
So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just trying. F2,
Yeah.
F1, and then e dot message.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is the exception is getting propagated to F1 or forwarded to F1?
I think the only F2 will be
No,
printed.
Yeah, only F2 will be printed.
Yeah,
No,
only
because
F2.
the error is
Yes,
getting
yes.
closed. The
Yeah.
exception is getting closed. It is
Yeah.
not forwarded at all, right?
Yes, yes.
So here F2 has
It will
already
rethrow it.
handled. I have corrected myself. So there is no way. So
We don't
principal
need.
is
Yeah,
not going
correct.
to
Got
report
that.
my parent, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Got that.
Okay. So there may be some situations.
Sir,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt, sir.
Yeah.
In the line 4, there are two semicolon. Still, it is working.
Giving a semicolon is not an error actually. Semicolon means you are having a no op statement, means no operation statement. It is a
Line
statement
ended.
but doesn't do anything.
The line indicates the line is ending.
Yeah, it's called a no op statement, no operation statement. So it is a statement which do not do anything,
Okay.
but it is a valid statement. Okay. Okay. So there could be a situation. There are certain actions has to be done by each of the function or in the main function whenever a callee method fires an exception. So in that case, you want to print the message, but at the same time, you want to forward the exception also. I want to print F2 also, means I'll catch the exception, but at the same time, I'll forward the exception. How I'll do that?
So we can
Because I
throw
want
the
to do the
Throw
exception
exception, right?
step by step. Here partially will be solved, here something will be solved, here something will be solved. Because the main code I know written on the main, I have to somehow forward it into the main. But I can also print where actually exception I got, right? That's the idea. So somehow I have to forward it. So that's basically called a rethrow of an exception. I'm catching the exception, then
Throw
again
new one.
throwing it.
Or throwing
I
the same.
just the same exception object, I'm throwing it. So I'm doing some corrections, but it is not complete. What I do, I also send it to my parent. Parent will do a partial part of it, right?
Okay.
Now, what will be the output for this?
F2, F1.
To F1.
Yeah, it will stop again in F1 because F1 is not forwarding it, right?
Yes, it's catching.
But if
Yes.
I want F1 also will forward it, then I should
Control.
again throw it over here. So now it will be F2, F1, and that message.
Message.
Is it clear, the forwarding thing idea? Okay. Now, many a situation it may happen in a practical scenario, mostly in the web application, it happens many a time. You get some exceptions internally, but whenever you're showing to the user, it's some different kind of exception. Means I'm getting some exception, but whenever I'm rethrowing an exception, it is object of some other exception class. Try to understand. Suppose I get arithmetic exception, right? But whenever I'm rethrowing the exception, I'm not throwing the arithmetic exception. I'm throwing array index of bound exception. So can you think about any use case of this? I'm not rethrowing the original exception. Rather, I'm throwing a different kind of exception. So I think most of you have done some part of app dev 1 and some part of DBMS. If you know
Yeah.
any of this, it is fine. So suppose my web application I have written in Java, right? So I'm having a backend module, like its model part, which is querying something on the database, and it gets a SQL exception, right? Now, instead of reporting the SQL exception to my end user, so that on the user screen I do not have a SQL exception, I catch it, and I throw a server internal error exception, some kind of exception which will print that particular message, server internal message. Because I don't want my user will see what's the database problem and those kind of things. I'll just tell them the problem is something internal to the server. There is some problem with the server, right? Getting my point?
Yes, sir. Got that much.
The actual error I don't want to show, right, to the end user. But at the same time, I want developer will be somehow able to trace it. Where is the problem? Even developer also will, whenever see the output on the browser, he will also get the internal error. So how he will identify where is the error? There should be some mechanism he can go and trace it out, right? Okay, let us see. I'm going to use whatever the exception names we know, right? I'm not going for any complicated exception. Say a simple way, I write array index out of bound exception. So I say invalid array access. Array index out of bound. What happened? Oh, exception I haven't written. Okay. Okay, so I am catching an arithmetic exception, but whenever I'm rethrowing, my caller will get which exception? Array index out of bound exception, right? So I'm creating an abstraction that on the top, whenever I'm looking, actually I'm seeing some exception, which is not the actual exception, which is created by some other exceptions. Again, so whenever this is throwing, now it is saying, okay, my exception is string index out of bound exception, right? Yeah, string index out of bound exception. So I'll say invalid string access. Okay, so I catch the arithmetic exception. I do some kind of reporting, but I fire another exception. That's array index out of bound exception. Then that will be caught here. So here, which exception should I have? Here I supposed to handle what kind of exception?
Array index out of.
Array index.
Array index out of bound exception, right? And here in the main, I should have
String index out of bonus.
okay, yeah. Okay, so let us don't show the messages, so things will be much clearer to you. Okay. Now, ultimately, whenever it gets into the main, what main thinks the error is invalid string exception.
Yeah.
Right. But now the question is, the source of the exception is gone. So how this is from the end user side, like end user, I don't want to give the actual details of the exception. I want to show him some other things. But how actually developer will be able to trace it? I should have a way so that my developer ultimately can trace out. So for that, you are having something as a
Init calls.
init call. Yeah, we are having something called as a init call. So let us go for the init call.
So in this case also the like invalid string access, why the like string or index out of bound exception is going, like f1 is called okay, and after that the f2 call like calling of f2 is happening, right?
Hmm.
And then why like the index out of bound string index out of bound is going there?
Yeah, I'm calling f1.
Then
F1
again.
calling f2.
Mhm.
It is in f2. F2 firing this arithmetic exception, which is caught over here. But I'm throwing a new exception from the catch block. That's a array index out of bound. So who will handle this exception?
But then the index out of bound exception would be there, right? Like
No,
invalid
if it is
arrays.
not handled, it will be forwarded to the caller, right? It come back to the caller. In the caller, I can see it can handle the array index out of bound.
But
So
it is like it is there, right? The arithmetic exception, the thing is
yeah,
there.
I'm handling the arithmetic exception, but I am firing again another exception, no array index out of bound. This is a new
Okay.
exception, but
Okay, you
there
are
is no
firing.
one to handle it, right?
You are firing another exception. That's why it
Which
is
is not
going back
handled
to.
in the F2. So it will be forwarded to the caller, right?
Mhm. Okay.
So caller is handling it, but it is handling it's fine, but it again generating another exception. That's the problem, right? Okay. But I want somehow from the main I'll be able to trace out what are the things are, right? So for that, I won't throw it directly. I create a new exception object. Suppose it's a any, and any dot init clause. I say the reason why I am throwing this exception is nothing but e, which is the arithmetic exception. So what is the root cause of this particular exception? This is caused by a arithmetic exception. Then I'll say throws the whatever the new exception I have generated, I'll throw that. Don't throw e, because e is a arithmetic exception. You have to throw the array index bound of exception, right? Now same thing will happen. I come to it comes to the f1. So inside the f1, I say any. Sorry, I say any. Okay, so I'll have any dot init cause e. Then I say throw any. Okay, so here this any, which is an array index out of bound, having the information that it is caused by a arithmetic exception, whereas the string out of bound exception any, having the information it is caused by whom? It is caused by a array index out of bound exception. So that's how, if I directly run this, I'll get only the invalid thing, but I can extract what are the source of the exceptions, right? So how do I do it? So I want to go one level, right? One level means this e, which is a string index out of bound exception, this is caused by whom? How do I check it? I'll say I say that system dot out dot print ln. I say e dot get cause. Get cause will give you who caused the exception e. What is the type of e? String index out of exception. This is caused by whom? This is caused by the array. So it will return the object this e, which is of array index. So just I do what here? I say get method. Right. So it is first invalid array index access, then it is string access. So it is caused by this. This is the result. Now who caused this again? That is also I can extract. So first guess cause will give me the array index out of bound. Then if I do again dot a get cause, what will happen? So array index out of bound is caused by this arithmetic exception, right? See. But if you still want to go another level, you'll get a null. If you want to go still another level, you'll get a null. Means you want to go dot get cause exception, right? Right. So another level, I'm getting the basically it will return a object null, but I'm calling the get method, right? So with the null, I'm calling a method, right? So it will give a null pointer exception. But you can see the object is basically the null object. The object, it returns a null object. So on the null object, if you call a method, it's basically null pointer exception. So that's why you're getting the exception, but it basically returns. So have you got it? Got the concept?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
But I don't want you to write it like this. Can you write it in form of a loop? Inside the loop, you'll get the parent object. Then again say get cause parent object until and unless your object is null. Would you like want me to do it? I think you can do it, right?
Yeah, we can use a while loop.
Yeah, just put a while loop until and unless e is becoming null. So get cause, get cause, get cause. Because I don't know how many get cause will be there, right? So here I can see the code and find it out, but in a practical situation, I don't know how many will be there, right? It's better to have a loop or some kind of recursion kind of function where we'll say until and unless e is null, again do get cause, again call the same function, recursive call.
So can you just
So,
show us? It will take time, if you don't mind.
I'm doing the looping one, right?
Yeah.
Because
Yes.
recursion, I don't know. I need to check it.
Yeah, anything is fine. So I mean, just one.
I'm just doing it. Somebody want to help me to do it quickly? I say do, or shall I go for do? Shall I do exception e? Oh, I'm already having the e. Okay,
So
sorry.
we can use a for loop. It will be better. I think.
Anything. I think this thing will be better. Right? So anything.
So
It's
why?
actually the same thing. All the loops are ultimately they are the same, right?
Yeah.
They are not equal to null. Tail is not equal to null. So I want to say until unless I get equal to null,
E dot get
better.
cause.
We'll print that e dot get message. And
No,
then
there could be a problem because casting won't happen, right? Because I have to like
yes, yes, we have to declare that exception.
the casting between array index out of bound and string bound of bound now may not happen, right? So that's what it's better to have an exception object, because exception object, if it is an unchecked exception, all are exception, so that's safer, right? So that's why I'm doing this. Got my point, no? Why I take another exception
Yes,
object?
yes, sir. But
Because assignment may not happen, right? Get cause. And before I do this, I have to do one more thing. I have to give a system dot out dot print ln ex dot get message, right? Why it's
Yes.
showing an error? Can check out. It's a throwable. Throwable on the top, right? Because I don't know it is checked or unchecked also. It's make it much more safer. It is giving me suggestion.
But why is it not exception, sir?
See, again, you don't know it is caused by a checked exception or unchecked exception, right? Checked exception means the parent is a exception, but if it's
Okay.
an unchecked exception, parent is a runtime exception. So that's why best practice will be to take a throwable, right? So any
Okay.
exception, it will be throwable. So that's why it suggested me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fine. So we'll go to the topic now. Yeah.
Sure.
Already it's going to be 7. Have to do it fast. Yeah. Okay. So this current week, this is week 8, right? We'll go for a bit different kind of thing. It's very interesting thing, but it's a kind of different approach, guys. Because until now, whatever the type of coding we have done in Java, these are all kind of a procedural approach. Procedural approach in the sense, what I say, that declarative and imperative approach, right? So now we'll look for something like which will go for a declarative, but we'll go slowly about the declarative programming in Java. Okay. Let us go for a very typical kind of interface. The interface calls as a functional interfaces. So what are functional interface? A functional interface is an interface which is supposed to have only one abstract method. Only one abstract method, right? Those are called functional interface. So a functional interface having a very interesting property. You want to show that, right? So first, I'll show one example of functional interface. This comparator is an interface which is a predefined interface and which is having exactly one method, right? Which is the compare method. So how we can deal with it? So I'll do normally how do we program, then I'll show you how actually we should do the programming with functional interface. Okay, let me do it very fast. Please help me if I'm missing somewhere. So I want to have a student class, a student having a private int roll number, and he's having also he or she is having a private having a string name. Then it's a public student int r string n, so role equal to r, name equal to n, right? And I can have also a public string to string. So what I'm going to do here, I want to display a student object, right, in a specific formatted way. So I have the roll number appended with a dash plus the name. So this is the format I want to show my student. Okay. So I want to implement the comparator for the student. So the student can be compared, right? So the criteria to compare the student, let the roll number, right? Right. If the roll number is bigger, I'll say the student is in the order he is bigger, and lower means lower. This is so the roll number itself is the concept through which I'll do the sorting for any student array or student collection, right? That's the idea. So let me do it in this way. So I'll have class st comparator implements comparator, but I want to implement it for the student. Okay. This is not correct. Comparator. I want to take comparator. It's comparator only, right? Oh. Okay. So there is a method called as a compare, right? Compare returns a integer less than, greater than, or equal, right? Last day we have seen, right? Hash function, right? Compare. So I have to compare between two objects. Which objects? Student objects. It says one student S2. So I'll be able to compare between two students S1 and S2. So how do I compare? The compare returns the integer. So that's it returns a positive if the first value is greater than the second value is greater than the first value. If second value is lesser than the first value, it returns a negative. If they're equal, it returns a 0. So why not do it like this? Return. Okay, I need the roll number to compare, and roll number is a private, right? What I should do? I should have accessor method, right? Int get roll. So don't start like you know everything about your program. So whenever you need it, just write the code. So I need a roll number because it's a private, I cannot access directly. So I'll go for s1 dot get roll minus s2 dot get roll. So I don't mind. So whichever is bigger, if the first one is bigger, it will send a positive value. If the first one is lesser, it will send a negative value. If they're equal, it sends a 0. So that's the criteria of my compare method, right? So I have done up to this. Now I want to write my main class. Main class is here. So I'm having a public static void main. I'm having a string args. Okay, so let us quickly have a array is arr. Give me a minute. So I'm having an array, so which is having a number of student objects. So I'll have new student. I have suppose 20 as a roll number. I'm having this Raj, new student, 10 Rahul, and I have a new student 30. So this is my student list. So since it's an array, I'll say, how do I short it? I'll say it's a arrays dot short. If you take a collection, I won't do it, you have to do it, then you are having collections dot short. Both works in a similar way, right? So if you have a
So there is a typo in the student spelling. The last the arrow, last element of the arrow.
yeah, thank you. So it's a S array. So I want to compare with this comparator class, my comparator class. So if you look at how the syntax look like for I want to search for arrays dot short. So it takes an array. Array is a generic kind, so I can pass an integer array also. That does not matter. And secondly, I have to give a comparator object, right? I need to pass a comparator object. So how do I pass it? So I have to pass the comparator is implemented here. So comparator is the interface. I cannot create an object directly out of it, right? So I have to create a new this. So done. Actually, it's shorted. So how do I make a loop? So my Eclipse is little older version. If you have read the variant, you can use the for each now, right? So maybe whenever I'll go for it, I'll use a different editor. I'll show you. So I'll have system.out.print ln, and I want to do this SARR of I. So it's basically done.
So line number 26.
One is extra.
26 triple
Oh,
here.
sorry. Yeah. Sorry, silly mistake. Yeah. Okay. So sorted by the roll number. If you just make it S2 minus S1, what will happen?
Reverse order.
It will be on a reverse order. It will be on a reverse order. And suppose like this, I'm having a public string get name return name. So here I just use a name.
Sir, can you explain that why the reverse order was there?
So what I have done?
The brackets in the line 25.
Can we subtract two strings? Do that. I don't know.
No, I cannot subtract two strings, right?
Yes.
I have to use the compare method once again.
Compared to is
Compared to, yeah. Because string cannot be compared with this. Yeah, correct. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Let us go back to this. Why this is getting reversed? Roll minus s1 dot get roll. So see, it returns a positive value whenever s2's roll is greater than the s1's roll, right? Means the roll number of the second object is greater, right? But if I
Yes, sir.
reverse it, the logic becomes opposite, right? It is just the reverse logic, right?
Sir, actually what it is doing, like taking the two
Yeah,
students.
compare method, that's why I told. It's basically compare between two objects. It's find out which object is greater, which object is lesser, right? So now my criteria to compare is roll number, right? So how do I do this? I basically, how do I do it? Basically, the rule is for the compare, it returns a positive value. It returns a positive value. Sorry, one minute. It returns a positive value. It returns a positive value if the first value is greater. If it is negative value, then the second value is greater. If it is 0, means the values are equal. Otherwise, the values are equal, right?
It's how is it doing, like taking the two random elements of the student?
No,
and
not random elements. Basically, whenever I'm passing this, no, it's basically taking the 0th element and first element, then doing the comparison, then taking the second and third, then doing the comparison, and then it is doing the sorting internally. The compare function internally used by the sort function.
so
To sort,
yeah, it will first take the 0th element and the first element. After that, getting the roll and just like means telling which is larger or which is smaller, and just switching that in accordance with that, right?
can you?
Means sir, like one by one, it is taking each student and getting the.
Shall I interrupt?
Yeah,
Sorry.
please.
Yeah, so I think the question is like you're just comparing two and you're returning a positive or a negative value. How does it sort internally? Is that the question?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so see, the thing is sort, actually the sort method, it uses some sorting algorithm, and I think it's something to do with either quick sort or merge sort or something like that internally, right? So when that sorting algorithm is like internally, it is doing something. But what it needs to do is when you're saying two students, the only thing that you have to tell them is which is bigger or which is smaller, right? So when you're telling them which is bigger or smaller, I mean, you instead of passing like this greater than symbol or less than symbol or whatever, just passing two values, you are just returning the difference between them, which indicates which is smaller or bigger. If it is a negative number, then the first one that you've passed is smaller. If you get a positive number, then the second one you get is bigger. Sorry, small. Yeah, if it is a positive number, then the first one is larger. If it is a negative number, then the first one is smaller. That is all that the sort needs to know. The sorting algorithm needs to know how do you compare two things. Like implicitly, when you sort a set of integers, sorting algorithms knows which number is larger and which number is smaller, right? But when it has to sort the students, it doesn't know what is the logic for comparing two students. That is all that we need to give in the compare algorithm. So when we give return a negative value, we say that, okay, the first one is smaller, the second one is larger. When it returns a positive, it says the first one is bigger, the second one is smaller. And then the sorting algorithm takes care of further.
And when the ma'am the order is reversed, like S2 minus S1, S2 don't get roll, minus S1 don't get roll. It will be like that. Then it will reversing the order of the like positive and negative, right? In the
Yeah,
comparator.
so that is because it is returning the positive value, right, at that point. So which is the bigger one, it knows, no? Okay. So what you're asking is internally, how does it differentiate, like whether it has to do the descending sort or the ascending sort, is it?
Yes.
Okay. So that is how internally the comparator class takes care of that. The compare method, right? Internally, that is what the comparator interface takes care of, not class interface takes care of that. Because we are ordering, see, the order of S1 and S2 is very clear in the arguments, right? So when you're doing an S2 minus S1, then you're showing that the second one is bigger than the first one. And you have to sort according to the decreasing value of the key, whatever key we are giving. See, I will explain it to you. Yeah.
If it is S2 minus S1, then like after calculating, it will get that it is a shorter or bigger.
No. So so that's the difference. No, like the order of the compare arguments, that is also important here. See, you are not just like that giving student S comma student S. No, student S1 is there, student S2 is there. Both are different objects, right? So when you're doing S1 first, it means it is going to be an ascending sort. When it is going to be S2 first, it is going to be a descending sort.
Means if you are taking the second object in the positive and the first object in the negative, then it will descend in all the time, like no matter what is the case.
No, it's not positive negative. Second object value is bigger. Then you can understand that's a descending, no? If the first object value is bigger than the second object, then it's ascending.
Okay.
You're having two values. If the first value is bigger, then it's a descending. If the second value is bigger, it's ascending.
Okay. But
Okay. Thank you. See, like instead of an array, if you take a collection here, then you can do the same thing. You have to write a collections dot sort, and you have to write your collection name. I'm just writing array here, but array it won't work. And you have to keep the object of this. If this ARR is a collection means it's a array list or a linked list. For them, this will sort your elements according to the criteria what you have given here. Okay. Now we'll come to know one term that's called the higher order methods or higher order functions. So if you What is the meaning of higher order methods or higher order functions? A functions perform its operation on another other functions, right? A function performs certain operations on another function. So what kind of operation it can do? So it may happen a function takes an argument which is a function, or a function can return another function, correct? So now this is possible in Java in terms of something called as a lambda expression, in terms of something called as a lambda function or lambda expression. So lambda function is presenting a body of a function or a function itself in terms of a or in a way of expression, writing an expression. So how can I do that? Suppose I don't have this comparator. Now remember, a lambda expression can be written in a higher order function for an interface if it is a functional interface. What is a functional interface? A functional interface is an interface which is having exactly one abstract method, right? So now how do I write the abstract this? Let it be there, I'm not deleting if you want to reuse this code afterwards. So here I want to write a function, but it's not a normal function. I want to write a lambda function. Now what this function indicate? The function must indicate how the comparison happens between two student objects. And since I need to pass an object of this comparator class interface, and this is a functional interface, it has to be written as I'm writing the compare function, But I have to write as an expression. So how do I write it? See, I have to pass two student objects. What I can do a student is 1, comma, student is 2. Sorry. This implies goes to, right? So the operation will be on two parameters S1 and S2, which are of type student. So I want to do the same operation what I have done over here. I say S1 dot get roll number minus S2 dot get roll number. Let me put it within a bracket. You don't give a bracket, I don't think it will be an error, but it looks okay. So I'm passing the function directly, but I'm passing it as a lambda function. I'm telling the lambda function should have a signature which is very similar to the actual function you are implementing. So here actually what you are implementing? The compare function. So what should be the arguments in the compare function? Student S1 and S2, and return type should be int. So that will be implicitly taken. You don't have to mention explicitly over here. So this is the function. So now let me run this. You're getting your output, right? Let me make it much more compact. Even in the lambda function, you don't have to write the argument type. Since it is, you are implementing the compare method, which is the abstract method, and in the abstract signature, you already know what are the type of value you need to pass, which is student. It compares with the signature and find out what are the things. Right? Just I reverse this. Right? Now make it much more interesting. I have get name dot length. Anyone, what will happen now?
Highest reverse and lengthwise.
It will sort it the length of the name, right?
Length of the name, yes.
Greater length will come first. Yep.
It's so flexible, right? You don't have to write so small code. You don't have to implement any this comparator or anything, right? Directly write the code over here, and so simple code. So very less chances that you'll commit a error also, right? If you write in this way. But only the thing you have to understand that it could be done for a functional interface only. The interfaces which are having a single abstract method. For rest you cannot do this, right? For rest you cannot do this.
I just have only one doubt here.
Yeah.
Okay. So here, when we give S1 minus S2, it is always coming as ascending. So S2 minus S1, it's always coming as descending.
Hmm.
Is that the case always, or will it vary based on the given list, or I mean, given array list? Array. You get my question?
Yeah, I got your question.
Yeah. I mean, is it based on the input, or it is
No,
always?
it not doesn't depend on the input. It is
So
telling how two numbers will be compared.
yeah.
It is just telling in the sequence how two consecutive numbers will be compared. That's all.
So S1 minus S2 will always be ascending, and S2 minus S1 will always be descending. Is it so?
Sir, you can try by changing the length of the S1. Like the first object, you can
Correct me
say.
if I'm wrong, sir. I mean, is there any chance that if we
No, I'm trying to find out where is the confusion happening, but
Sir, can you just try that
which one? Tell
changing,
me.
like the Raj becomes Rahul and Rahul becomes Raj, means that would be clear, I think.
Okay. It's
coming in the ascending.
basically
Okay,
nothing
means
like that. You have to understand. Suppose you are having a series like this.
Yeah.
So how these two number will be compared? So this is S1, this is S2.
Mhm.
Again, these two, whenever you are comparing, this is your S1, this is your S2.
Okay, so first case, it comes as S1 minus S2 is minus 10, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Second time it was 30 minus 10, which is minus 20.
Yeah,
I mean,
negative means a lesser logic.
Yeah.
Positive means a higher logic, means bigger, and
Yeah.
zero means it is equal. That's all. You need to understand only this.
Yeah, that understood, sir.
Mhm.
So my question was like S1 minus S2, is it always ascending? That's the only question here. Yes or no?
Yeah, why? I mean, what
If
is the
my
other logic?
sequence,
Yeah, what is the other logic, co-application? I don't understand what your question is. Like, what? I mean, we just gave so many examples and we've shown that S1 minus S2 is the ascending rate. So, what is your
Yeah,
doubt?
that's what I'm just saying, whether I understood it correctly or not. Nothing else.
Okay,
Ma'am.
okay, okay.
yeah. See, like it depends on in which sequence you are writing. If you write S2 and S1, then the order will be different.
Yeah, then the order will
So
change and
first one
yeah.
is first one minus second one. You could think in this.
Yeah, okay. Yes.
First value minus
Got
second value. So that is
Sure,
where
sure.
I am getting confused. It is
I'm
not
sorry, sir.
about S1, S2. It is basically the sequence.
The order.
The
Yeah, okay.
first argument and the second argument.
Sure, sir. Got that much. Thank you so much.
But whenever you are doing at your home, please practice with the collection types also. I'm not doing. I'm giving you as a homework. Like, please try with
It's
the
the same thing that
collections.
we need, except that we just need to put collection over there, right?
Yeah,
Array
you have
list.
to take a array list first instead of an array.
Yeah.
Array list or a linked list or a set, anything, right?
Okay.
Arup, I just had one doubt.
Yeah, please.
So this S1 and S2, the data type of S1 and S2 is determined by the data type of S array, is it?
Determined by
In
the
line
signature
35,
of the signature of the
line 35, we are giving S1 and S2, right? And we are not giving the data type of S1 and S2, right? So implicitly, it is taking the data type of elements in S array, is it?
yeah, it's like implicitly S1 is of this type only, but S1 and S2, see, in my entire code, it is not specified which type there.
Correct.
From
Yeah.
where I'll know the type, because as I know the second argument of this, as per the signature of this sort function, I know it should be the type of comparator, right? And comparator having only one method, that's a compare method. So what are the types that will be implied over here? So it's a student and the return type is a int. So that's why neither the return type nor the argument type I have to mention explicitly.
Okay, got it. Thanks,
Because,
thanks, thank you.
yeah,
Yeah, I got
because
it.
inside the abstract method, it is told already like what should be the things.
Yeah, but I mean, that is because in the comparator, the
Yeah, the second
parameter
argument clearly it's given as a comparator, right? So
yeah,
what
got
type
it.
of value I should have? I should have a comparator type. So it will go for looking at what is there in the comparator. It finds, yes,
Okay.
I can do it with the comparator because it's a functional interface. So let us, if it is a functional interface, I don't have an ambiguity. That's why it's a one function
Yeah, one option.
interface, right? If I have more
Got
function,
it,
it
got it.
doesn't know which signature
Yes,
it will
yes,
follow.
yes. Got it,
Right?
got it. Thanks, thanks, thanks. Yeah, got it. I got it, Edu. Thanks, thanks. I
Okay,
had some
okay.
confusion.
So let us go for another simple one. Let me go for sorting and string array. So you people have to help me. Class, T class, public. So inside string class, this comparator is already implemented. So somebody calls a string dot colon colon compare. They also can call the compare method directly from the string method. So I'm not doing that part explicitly because that's explained in the SAS lecture quite in detail, and that's simple also. But this lambda part I'm more focusing on. Like you can call directly a function from a class, right? So I have a ARGS. I'm having string words. So I'll have some words. I have kept some words stored here so that I can do it quickly. I was practicing with something in the morning. Let me find it out.
So you can use any notes.
I have a big string here. Okay. I'm having a text, big text. So this text I want to convert into a string, word. I want to extract the word. So there is a function called as a split. This is very important function, split. So you can pass a delimiter. So my delimiter is a space, right? So whenever it sees a space, it takes it as a particular string. It creates and string array, right? So as is a string, a is a string, sample is a string, right? So split the entire big string into smaller string, and my delimiter, the separator, is nothing but a space. That's all. Now see, whatever the array I got or all the words I have, I want to arrange them in a according to their length, right? So since it is an array, arrays, not array, right? Short. So here I'll take these words, and as you know, the second argument is a comparator. You don't have to write again. You may just write a lambda. You have to compare between two strings. Suppose the two strings are s1 and s2. So last also I have written s1 s2. Here also I'm writing s1 s2. Doesn't mean you have to always write s1 s2. You can take any variable. It's just write a function argument. So I want to do it with a length. Length. Length is a function, no, for a string. Minus s2 dot length. I think it's done. See, the parentheses are correct, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So for int I equal to 0, I less than words
What's
dot length I plus plus. I want to arrange them side by side, otherwise it will go out of my screen. Print out dot print just print. watch I just give a space. So it will be again arranged with a space, means it will get merged again with a space. But the point is now it will come in a order of their size.
Line number 9, you have written T. Can you remove that?
Which one?
Line number 9, after the semicolon.
Oh, sorry. See. Right?
Why does A come first, then comes the number 1?
So that's further you need to override your comparator for that, like how you compare. So it takes the natural order. So A comes first, then 1. But if you want again a lexical ordering, then again you have to do something like if they're matching, then lengths are equal, I should compare like this.
Okay.
So for more nesting is required. That's also possible, but I'm not going for that right now.
So then internally it uses merge sort, I think. The order is not changed when the
I'm not sure.
The quick shot, the order may change. The merge is the most efficient way.
I'm not sure. Like, yeah, it could be, but I'm not sure. I'll check out. Surely. Okay. Now, the point is, if I create a functional interface, then I can also write a higher order function, right? I can design higher order function. So let us try to do it. I can create a functional interface with a single abstract method, and using that, I want to create a higher order method, right? Because objective of mine is to create higher order methods. Because higher order methods, if you look at, it's look like much more a declarative way to do the things. If you look at this particular statement, no, see, it's if you have done a SQL kind of thing, you can find out very much similar to that. It's very much a kind of declarative. You're just telling this is what you want. The first one should be lesser than the second one, right? This kind of thing. So higher order function is a way to going towards declarative. I'm not saying we are on the declarative right now, but slowly we are going towards the declarative. Okay. Let us go for it. I want to create functional interface. Then using the functional interface, I want to create a function like this short. I will do something else, but I want to create a higher order function, right? So let us create an interface. I name it as a I filter. I want to create a filter so that I can add a predicate with my number. Say I want to get the values which are less than 10. I want to put a condition. I want to find the value which are greater than 10. Or maybe I want to search for the even number. I want to search for the odd number. So some kind of filter I want to put on my list or array. Right. So I say I should have a void method called as a filter. So which will be applied to int. You can also make it generic if you want, but I'm not doing so. Generic means I'm telling this function is applied for only for the int, but if you want, it will be applied for any kind of array or any kind of list. You have to create a T kind, right? The generic kind of interface, right? So please try it at your home. If you're not getting, next day maybe I'll again explain this, like how to make it generic. So here I'm creating this for only a integer type of collection or array. I'm having T class. I want to design a function, right? Public void a print function, which will print my array, as per the predicate I give. So here the argument is I filter type. Here the argument is I filter. So how do I implement my filter? Accordingly, my array will be printed, right? Is this logic is clear? So please remember, it is not the lambda only way you can do it. You can also implement this thing and pass it as a second argument and do the things like as I've done for the short, right? I may have implemented the comparator in another class, then I can put an object of it. The same thing is possible. Like I can have another class which is implementing I filter, where I can give the logic and I can pass an object over here, right? Okay. So how do I do it? I'll have a int I equal to 0, I less than array dot length I plus plus. Okay, so it's not a void. If I have to have a predicate, I need to tell either I'll print it or not. So it should be a Boolean, right? I need to make a true or false. Predicate means it will say it returns in a true or false. So true say I'll print this. False means I won't print it. So I'll whatever the filter I have object, this is the filter object. Using that I'll call my filter function. And this filter function will be applied to my array. So for array ith value, if it is true, then I do what? I print it. I print the value ar of I plus why this t is coming every day? I don't know. Okay. So please check out any problem. So this is a higher order function. I'm going to make it right. But if you look at this, it's very similar to the short function. In the short function, I used to take an array, and the second argument was a comparator type, right? So look at over here, signature is very similar. I didn't take the generic, but it takes a comparator object, which is the interface. I take a I filter object, right? So I'm having a public static void main. Okay. So let us have an array. Anyhow, I have to create an array. We cannot skip it. So let us have a lot many numbers I want. Okay, I have enough numbers. Now I want to show it. Showing, I'll actually show it afterwards, but I'm just writing the code before implementing the filter. Okay, filter is there. No, filter is going to print it. So print function will print it. So I don't have to do this, right? So I just call the print function. I pass my array. Now I have to give the logic of my filter. So can you tell me in my lambda, if I implement as a lambda, what should be my argument type? What should be my argument type?
Positive, negative, or zero?
I say I want to write a lambda expression. So what should be my argument type? How many argument I'll pass? See, whenever I'm implementing it, you need to understand I am basically implementing this function, right?
Yes, huh?
If I'm doing this, you need to
Boolean.
understand I pass a integer. My argument is an integer, but return is a Boolean.
Correct.
So any value I pass, say it's I need to assume it's an integer.
Yes.
Right. Now suppose I want to check the even number. Right. So I need to return a Boolean. So how do I do this? If I
2 equals to 0.
2 is equal to 0, if this is true, then it returns a true. If it is false, it returns a false. So I'm done. Nothing I have to do. Oh, where it is? So compiler error. Okay.
Make it static. Yeah.
Yeah. It's filtered out all positive number. You change it, the logic. It get you the negative numbers. It's so simple, right? If you want to find out the values lesser than 50, keep the logic. The values lesser than 50, and to find out the values greater than 50. Right? But isn't it look like a declarative, like I'm just telling this is I want and I'm getting that same output, but I'm not telling how it has to be passed and how it has to be checked, right? I'm just giving the logic. Internally, all these things is happening, right? But if you just look at this code, as a user, somebody is writing this code, right? Because these are the codes which are the functions which will be given as a library, right? But as a programmer, whenever I write this kind of code, it's very much look like a declarative kind of programming, right? Just specifying what I want, right? Is it okay?
Yeah, okay.
Yes, sir, good.
Okay, okay, okay. Okay,
So
so
one
I'll go
small
for the.
question. How do we like combine that it is iFilter is using here?
What is the signature of print?
Okay, okay, okay.
And that is why iFilter has to be a functional interface. Just one method I have, I know the signature. If I have multiple methods, there is an ambiguity, no? I do not know what the signature has to be.
Okay,
If I have
so that object has only one method and
I
that we
have,
are going to call.
I know this I will be definitely the integer type, right? Because that is the argument type. And this has supposed to be returning a true or false Boolean value. So that's why this condition returns a true or false. It's a beautiful way to do the program, right?
But
So
filter method we are not implementing as it is, right?
The implementation is only this.
Okay.
This is a lambda implementation, right? It's
Okay.
actually a function, but I'm writing a function as an expression. That's like a way I write a declarative statement, right? Okay, we'll look at some of the applications of this. We'll go to the next topic, but that is actually the application of these things. It's basically called as a stream. So stream is basically a very much the similar kind of concept, a stream of water, like a river. You're having flow of waters, a flow of data, rather you can think of stream, a flow of data. The good thing about the stream than a collection, because in collection you can have a number of data, right? Inside the stream also you can have a flow of data, but where is the difference? First, the difference is whenever I want to do something with a collection, right? I need to fetch each element, then I have to do a operation in a declarative way. Yeah, you want to ask something? Somebody want? Yeah. Hello. Somebody want to ask something?
No, you can continue.
Okay. So the first thing is, whenever I'm having a collection, I basically implement a logic, right? For each element, what I should do. For each element, I'll apply the function, then I'll apply a comparison, then I'll do certain printing. So what are the operation I think of? I think of for each element, and I write the logic how we have to deal with that particular element, right? And the same logic will be implemented for each and every element. So that's a way I do a thought processing in an imperative program. But whenever I do a stream, I think all the data as a form of a stream means whatever the operation I'll apply to it, it will be applied for all. So I'm not thinking them individually. I'm thinking all of it from the very high level, right? So how this thinking will happen? So suppose I have a stream of numbers, right? I have a stream of numbers, so the values are going 10, 20, 30, 40, like it's flowing like this. Then I put a filter here. I say what I want. I want if the values are less than 50, then only I'll take. So whenever it goes out of the filter, I see it's only having this 10, 20, 10. Then I say I put another mapping. Here I say for each element I'm getting, do what? I do multiply it with 10. What will happen? For each element, this operation will be applied. So I'll have 300, 200. It's flowing like this. Then I can do some other operation. Then again flow. Then put some boundaries. So ultimately it will come out. Right? So rather than thinking about a particular operation will be done for each and every element separately, I think it apply a particular operation for the entire string. Right. So once I'll go for an application, you'll understand. Okay. Let us go for it. So I am having the code. I don't want to write it because the codes are very simple, but you need to understand the logic. That's all. What this code do? I have already told what this part is going to do. I'm having a text, a big line. Right. Now I want to convert this line into a list. Previously, the split used to give an array, right? But this array can be again converted into a list. So what is a list? So inside what I am having, I just want to show you what is there in the word. I'm having system.out.println. I have these words, right? See this. All the words are separately inserted into a list, right? Okay. Now what I want to do, I want to find out how many words are there. How many words are there? And I want to do it using a string. So how do I do this? First thing, I have to convert my list to a string. So this is my list. Dot string is a function. So this will convert it into a string. So it's a stream of the words. I want to find out how many words are there. So I'm having a function called as a count. So count will return a long, which says how many words are there inside my string. So I just do this. So it's basically say inside this particular string or the collection, I'm basically having the 25 words, like 25 strings, right? Words. Now, so normally I can, so these are one operation. This is a string, I'm converted into a string. Then I put an operation called as a count. It's something like this. I had a list first. The list is converted into a string, right? Using this stream function. And it is inserted into a pipe, right? And here I put an operation that's called a count. So it's like I send one word inside this, I keep a count incrementing. So at the end, I get the total count is 25. Right. Now to modify a bit, I want to do much more. I want to find out how many words I have that's having size more than 5. The length more than 5. So now there is a method called as a filter, which takes a predicate. So it could be a very long. So normally the practices we write it like this, so that it to give a better readability. So actually it's like a stream dot filter dot count. But normally the practice for better readability, we give it like this. So we want each element, so each element say S of this particular stream, where the length is greater than 5. So actually what is happening here, before putting the count, I have kept another filter, right? Where it's basically saying greater than 5. So what are the words are coming? It is getting filtered only the particular words which are greater than 5 coming out of it is. So they will be only counted, right? If I get like this, so now it's getting 6. So If you calculate it, you'll get 6 words are there inside this, which are having length greater than 5. Is it okay up to this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what is the time? So I'll go for another example, then I'll stop. But there are a few more examples. Maybe on the next day I'll show you those things. Okay. So one way to convert a collection to a stream, you take the collection. So what is a collection? Which is a list dot stream, which will convert it into a stream. There is another way to convert it into a stream. You are having a stream, then there is a off function. Stream dot off. Off is a static method. If you pass an array or a collection into it, it converts into a stream. If you just run it, it's basically the same output, the same program only. It's basically the same program, but instead of using this stream function of the collection type words, I'm using the off function of the stream. But both convert a collection into a stream. So I'm not explaining this. Please go through. I'll share this particular file. So last
So I just have one doubt here. So streams, when we use them, it's only once we can use it, right?
I'm not getting only once.
There's the stream. So we got an error when we tried to do the program. So it was like stream was closed, something like that. When we use a for loop to access the elements of a stream.
If you exactly show me the code, I can tell you. I'm not getting what.
Okay, then we'll discuss it
you
later.
can post it on the Discourse. Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now, how could I generate a string? So previously, what we have seen, like we can have a collection or an array, then I'll convert it into a string. You can also generate a string. So there is different way to generate a string. The first way, so for a lambda, if you have a open close parenthesis, this means it's a void. The argument is a void. You don't pass any argument, right? It just generate a hello. Just generate a hello. Just generate a hello. And each element I do print it. So how do I pass the print? I just pass the print as a function. So if you just go for that higher order method, you'll come to know what this kind of call means. So println is a static method, so that's why you have to be specified with 2 colons. So I'm saying that generate hello, and for each hello you print it. So for each means for each generated thing you apply the method. So which method I'm applying? For each hello I'm applying a println method. So println will do what? It will print it on a different line. If I'm just doing it, so it's go on printing hello, 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 hello. So I haven't put any limit, right? So what you can do, you can put a limit. So limit say how many hellos will be generated. So where to end the stream. So this is stream generation will be ended after generating 5 hello, and then this 5 hello will be printed. So we look at, I have basically why so many hellos. Is it 5? Not more than 5? 1, 2. Okay, let me some work. I write my name. How many it's coming? It's 5 only, no? Yeah, it's 5 only. Yeah, it's 5 only. Okay. So this is using the generate function with the stream, right? Okay, next we go for.
So can you explain it again, please, once the generate with the generate function?
So generate do what? It will go on generating a string, whatever the string you give, right? It may not be a string, you give a number, it will go on generating the same number. And for each generated value, we apply this method.
Okay.
Which method? Println. So that particular generated element will be printed. So if I don't put where is the limit, it will go on printing the 10 in an infinite way, right? So limit will say how many values will be generated. It's 5. 5 times the values will be generated. Right?
And the for each function is what it's doing. It's running
Each
the loop.
value is generated. I'm saying for each value you have generated, apply the function
This
println.
function println. Okay, got it.
For each element you generate, apply the method println. That's all. Okay. Next, again generate, but now we'll come to know another method that's called as a map. Map can be used to apply a method for each element. For each element, if I want to see the difference between for each. For each is a read-only method, and it cannot modify your value. Whatever you are generating, that value cannot be modified. But map can let you able to change the value, right? Map can let you modify that particular value, right? So what I'm doing here, I'm generating some random values. So random values will be generated between 0 to 1, in between 0 to 1, right? So if I don't do the map, I want to show you what will happen. Then I'll show the map. If I've given limit 10 means I want to generate 10 random values, and each random value I want to print it, right? You can see 5 random values are, sorry, 10 random values are generated, right? Now what I want to do, I want to convert these values into a value between 0 to 100. I want to convert them into 0 to 100. The simple way, and I wanted them as an integer. Simple way I can do it. I take each element, multiply it as 100, then convert it into an integer. So that means I get a int value which is in between 1 to 100, right? So just run this again. So these are the random value generated between 1 to 100. Right? So you have to run this and understand. So I'm quickly going for the next. Next, you are having a iterate function. It's normally like a iterate method, but you can get some kind of similarity with a for loop. So it is the initial value, and this is how the value will be incremented. It's a n equal to n plus 1. Every time I'll increment the value by 1. It's a 10. What is the output? It's a very intuitive, right? The value will be 0 to 9. 10 values. First value is 0, 1, 2. But the same thing, if I say increment by 2, the values will be 2, 4, 6, right? This is another form of this iterate, right? It's exactly look like a for. Initial value, then the condition. See here the condition I have given separately. I say I want 10 values. But here I say my value has to be less than 10. This is the condition and this is the increment. So I want to say I want to generate the values which are less than 10, which are less than 10. So the values less than 10 are generated. So this is the last. What this will do, you have to tell me. Fast.
Will increment
Square
and
of plus
multiply.
9 positive.
Correct.
Yeah, it will increase.
Square of plus 9
Yeah, so
positive.
values will be, result will be 0, then 1, then
4, 9,
4, 9. Yeah.
25.
So we are done actually. Up to 81, right? Now last value is 9 because it's less than 10. So just make it less or equal to 10 means I'll get 100. You can do the same thing. Instead of making the condition over here, before you put a map, you put a limit. right? I want to generate 10 values, first 10 values, right? So 0 to 9, first 10 values means the same thing, right? Yeah. So enough for today. We are having some few more program on this thing, but remember this is somehow like easy thing once you practice it. But higher level function, the lambda is very conceptual. Please practice this a lot, because until and unless you practice a lot, this you won't be clear about the lambda functions.
Sir, can you explain the double H2 function in the
Which
program?
one? Double?
Like, can you again share the screen, please? Yeah, the system.out, there is double H2, right?
If I'll suggest you go through that higher level function what Sir has taught. It's just the logic is, if you have a static method, no, this println is a static method. It has to be passed within a function as a colon. But if it is a non-static method, I call it with a dot. If it is non-static, I'll call it like this. If it is static, I'll call it as a colon. But you have to go through once the lecture, then only the clear understanding will come.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, Dhanya, anything else?
No, Arup, we can mind. Thanks.
Okay, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.